Hey everybody. So today what I wanted to do was do a proof that was in, or a formalization of a proof that was in the section on Anselm. I realized that video was already about 40 minutes long, but I wanted to spell out the proof just in case anyone wanted to see it in video format, or I don't know, just in case anybody, when you're going through that video, it's like, wait a second, where was the proof? I don't understand the rest of the words after that. So it's the proof in the book is starting on page 39, and it doesn't go past page 39. But yeah, so first, Hartshorne, it's from Hartshorne's work, and I'm first going to start with some definitions, and then I'll go through the 10 premises of his proof. So let's open page 39 here, and we'll jump right in. All right, page 40. Okay, so yeah, let's go. Yeah, let me start here, and we will probably let's use pink. Pink is a good color. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can set my book here. Good. Alrighty. And hopefully I will be able to write large enough to where everyone can see it. So, alright, let's look at this first definition here. Q is going to be for Right. And let me just make sure that this is actually visible and that my handwriting is large enough. It's a little bit hard to read, but I think it'll be okay. I can read it after I write everything down. So there should be 3 more definitions. And let me just go ahead and read this. This first definition here says, Q in the single quotes for, and then this is single quotes, there exists an X such that P is X, and we're defining this to be there's a perfect being or perfection exists. So I'm sure Charles Hartshorne is putting this or perfection exists to be a little bit more accommodating to people who may not think of God as an agent. They may sort of think of him as just perfection in general. I don't know, I don't want to make any speculation. So the second definition has capital N in single quotes for, and then this in single quotes, this phrase is, it is necessary, in parentheses, logically true that. Okay. Okay, so then we have this twiddle here for, in single quotes for this phrase in single quotes is, it is not true that. Okay, so then we have this disjunction symbol, which is kind of the letter V, but it's not exactly V, but I'm making it a V. So V in single quotes for or, and this may be the logical or, but it may. I don't think he's going to be using this in the sense of that it's an or. That it's like an everyday like person who's using the word or. I think he's using this in the logical sense. So let's see if I can write down these 10 principles or 10 premises of the proof, and we'll see how this goes. Okay, so what I think I'm going to try to do is, I think because of the lampstand or the light that I have hitting this wall, there should be a glare about like right here, at least for the camera. So for me, I see kind of a glare like right here, but I think the camera is picking up a glare about right here. So what I'm going to try to do is put like maybe the first 5 premises like right along here, and then I might have to erase them and write this next 6, the 6 through 10. So actually, I'm sorry, there's one more definition that I left out. So I guess there's 6 definitions here. 1, 2, 3, wait. 1, 2, 3, oh, no, there are 5. There are 5. Okay, so this last one is going to be and I might be running into the glare a little bit here. I'll have to check that in just a second. Okay, this is so I try not to talk when I'm behind the camera because my voice gets a lot louder. So what I was going to say though is it looks like I'm right above the glare here, so I'm going to write the other part of this. Okay, so yeah, I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to erase all of them, but let me just read this last one. So P implies Q is in single quotes, and this is going to be for P strictly implies Q, which is a little bit different than normal implication. Yeah, I think this strict implication may change the truth table a little bit, so, but let me just see here, because this is equivalent, P strictly implies Q is equivalent to necessarily not P and not Q. So let's see. Let's write out the truth table for implication. So So I don't remember what the definition of strict implication versus regular implication is, but let's see. If we're going by necessarily not P and Q, well, P and not Q, we're getting this second row here of the truth table, and we're saying it's not this row. So it can be, both of them can be true, or the antecedent can be true, and the consequent can either be true or false. It's just that the antecedent can't be true and the consequent false. And so they're saying this strictly implies. And I'm not sure if I don't think this strictly is talking about the modality operator of the necessarily here. Maybe it is. Yeah, maybe it is. But I do remember when we start going to I believe, okay, I'm not 100% sure since it's been a while since I've looked into this, but I thought something like strict implication was what C.I. Lewis, C.I., not C.S. Lewis, was talking about with, he wanted implication to be more friendly to the normal way in which we talk about something implying something. So in normal conversation, these two would be false here and here. If the antecedent is false, the consequent, it wouldn't matter what it is. These should be false. But there's this principle Bertrand Russell talks about. Anything following from false premises, you can pretty much deduce anything from false premises. And then there's this Greek principle called I think it's ex falso quod libet, ex falso quod libet, and probably like something like out of false principles you can derive anything. But yeah, if these antecedents are false, it doesn't matter. This is whatever here is going to be true, whether this is true or false. Okay. The only thing we can't have is if P is true and Q is false, then the implication, it doesn't imply it. And we could talk about necessary and sufficient conditions, but we're not going to get into that right now. It is fun to think about, though. All right, and I think a lot of people use that. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase all these definitions now. And sorry if that makes things more difficult, but it's just so I can write the proof. And yeah, that should be good. All right, so let's do premise one. So Q entails necessarily Q. Hartshorne is calling this Anselm's principle and saying that perfection could not exist contingently. Okay, and I realize this is a little bit hard to read, so I'll try to make the next one bigger. Okay, so because he's calling this principal excluded middle, this disjunction here of necessarily Q or not necessarily Q, I think it can't be both. So then we should interpret this disjunction or this or symbol as not the logical or, where it can be one, it can be A, not A, or both. It could be, it can either be A or not A. So this is a form of Becker's postulate. It says not necessarily Q entails but necessarily not necessarily Q. And Becker's postulate says that modal status is always necessary. So this is premise 4, necessarily Q or necessarily not necessarily Q from these two premises. So yeah, and it's just because this side of the disjunction here is going to entail necessarily not necessarily Q. So, and let me put parentheses maybe around it to make it a little bit more clear. But because, you know, this is working out like this, we just replace this with that, and we get this disjunction here. Okay, so we got premise 4. Premise 5 is going to say that necessarily, not necessarily Q is just going to imply that necessarily not Q. And this is an inference from premise 1. The reason is because premise 1 says that Q entails necessarily Q, right? So let's see here. And then this piece of writing here says the necessary falsity of the consequent. Okay, so by the way, the necessary falsity of the consequent implies the antecedent, which is a modal form of modus tollens, modus tollens, because I think there's a glare right here. So yeah, so let's see. I mean, I guess it kind of looks like what we're saying is we just went, we kept like this part. This is so messy, I'm sorry. In this part, but we let, we kind of did like the reverse of this, and then we went and said the necessary falsity of the, when I see the necessary falsity, okay, of the consequent, I'm thinking the necessary falsity of like this whole thing, okay? So if this is necessarily not Q, implies the antecedent. So I'm I'm sorry, I'm not exactly sure why this part of the argument is holding here right now. I have to think about this for a while, and they say it's an inference from 1. I would definitely get it if they said necessarily not Q entails necessarily not necessarily Q, because Q to this, but it's not a biconditional, at least I don't think it is. But they're talking about this modal form of modus tollens. It's been a while since I've seen modus tollens, modus tollens, I don't even remember. There's 2 forms of this modus tollens and modus tollens, I think is what it is. I would have to look at it. I think what it's saying is something like, I think one of them is, and by the way, since I've gotten to this point, I think I'm going to erase it again, but let me just see something here. Because I think this, one of them is going to say P implies Q, and then they're going to say P, and then therefore Q, right? So this, I believe, is modus ponens, and it's not polens, ponens. I think this is modus ponens, right? And then I think, I'm sorry, it's been a while since I've looked at these basic principles of logic, but I think one of them is going to say something along the lines of, let's see, something like not Q entails not P. And then I think this is going to be not Q, therefore not P. So I think this top one is modus ponens, and this one is modus tollens, and I think this is called contraposition. I would have to go back and look. I'm kind of spitballing. So I think the way this works is that modus ponens says P entails Q, P, therefore Q, right? And that modus tollens says not Q is going to entail not P, right? And then let's see. Therefore, oh, I think I know what's going on here. Okay, I think I know what's going on here. Let me rewrite this a little bit differently. So, Okay, so I was doing the not necessarily, and I was grouping those together. I think what it would be better to do would be to, and I know this is what it would be better to do, is to look at these, this necessity right here. So I'll underline these ends here, okay? So these ends stand for necessity, all right? So if we have these two here, now we can look and we can see, yes, this is modus tollens right here. And by the way, this has to do, I believe the conceptual basis behind this type of modus tollens is something called, it's the difference between necessary and sufficient conditions. So I might have to explain that, but yeah, basically the idea here is for premise one, we have Q entails necessarily Q, right? And so that's like saying P entails Q. That's like saying the modus ponens premise. So then if we said Q, so let me just, yeah. So if we said something like Q entails necessarily Q, then we could say Q here, and then we could say necessarily Q, right? But for modus tollens, it's the other way around. What we would say is that not necessarily Q, okay, entails not Q. And so then we could say not Q, and then we could get, let's see, wait a second, sorry. Not necessarily Q would entail not Q. I'm sorry, I'm sure this is all sounding very, very fuzzy. It's making sense in my mind, but I'm not communicating it very well. So chances are, if you've heard of this stuff before, you're gonna be like, Luke, I understand, I don't need you to explain. Chances are, if you haven't heard of this stuff before, you're gonna be like, okay, well, I don't really understand, and that's not your fault. It really, really is not. I could be explaining this much better. I'm really just trying to get through this and kind of have a part two to my part one Anselm video. And let me see how long I've been going. And we're already at 30 minutes, so let's see if I can work through 6 through 10. Yeah. Let me just go ahead and write the formalization of 6 through 10, and then I'll read what's written there, and that way it'll be, if you already understand this stuff, or if you already kind of have a feel of it, it's going to be like review, and if you haven't, it may not feel so good, but that's okay. Yeah. Okay, so now we'll read the words behind 6 through 10. So for 6, we're going to have, this is an inference from premises 4 and 5. For 7, we're going to say this is intuitive postulate. In parentheses, we're going to say, or conclusion from other theistic arguments, that perfection is not impossible. So he's just saying, hey, if you have other theistic arguments that prove that at least this is possible, then we can say number 7. Number 8 is an inference from both 6 and 7. Number 9 is a modal axiom, and then 10 is an inference from premises 8 and 9. And then 64 is the footnote, and that's Ibid for page 51. And I guess that's Charles Hartshorne, The Logic of Perfection, and other essays in neoclassical metaphysics, Open Court Publishing, 1962. All right. Well, that concludes the presentation of that proof. So that wraps up the Anselm section. Like I said earlier, I'm sure if you already know some of this basic logic stuff, which is not basic if you don't know it, it will be like, oh, this is easy. I kind of see now why this is going. If you haven't, this might be a little bit tedious, or might be a little bit difficult. But yeah, so don't feel too bad or anything like that. So anyways, thanks for listening, everybody. Have a good day. Bye.